and make us excited as readers, okay? So I'm going to read this to you, then we're going to split into two groups. This group is going to talk about one book, this group is going to talk about a different book, and then we're going to come together and say, how are our books the same and how are our books different? Okay? All right. I hate English, May said in her head in Chinese. May was smart in school, in her school in Hong Kong, in Chinese. But her family moved to New York. She didn't know why. She didn't want to move, and she said all that in Chinese. Chinatown in New York was okay. People looked like people she knew. People talked like people she knew in Chinese. Already, what can you tell about text feature in this and how it's helping with the voice? Yes?
Mimi is talking in Chinese a lot.
Okay, and notice when we say text features, we're looking at the actual print. Boys and girls, you know how I keep saying in Chinese? In Chinese? See how I keep saying that 3 times? Look where it is in the book. Look how the author moved it over to the end of the other sentences. So to really emphasize, Nathan, to really emphasize that this character is feeling a little bit perturbed because here she is, she's in the United States and she wants to go back to her home country because which language does she prefer? Does she prefer English or Chinese?
Chinese.
And we know that because
It says that she's talking Chinese.
it keeps saying in Chinese, right? Here we go again. In New York, in school, everything happened in English. Such a lonely language. Each letter stands alone and makes its own noise. Not like Chinese. Sometimes English letters fight each other. We will go on a class trip, the teacher said in English. T-R-I-P, thought May. The letters T and R bang against each other. And each keeps its own sound. Not like Chinese. And here's some Chinese writing. May loved Chinese, especially writing. Fast strokes, short strokes, long strokes. The brush, the pen, the pencil all seemed to fly in her hand, but that was
In Chinese.
May wouldn't speak in school. Most of the time she understood what her teacher said, but everything was in English. And May wouldn't speak English. One day her cousin Bing took her to the Chinatown Learning Center. Students brought their homework for help, but not May. She wouldn't work in
Chinese.
She wouldn't work in English. Tutors helped the older ones with their English. May helped the little ones with arithmetic. She was good at arithmetic. Numbers weren't English or Chinese. They were just numbers. May loved the center. She talked and listened and explained and argued. She did everything in
Chinese.
Is the author using text feature? How the author puts the text on the page? Is the author using that to help make her point about how the character's feeling in the story?
Yes.
See how we as writers can use how we put the words on the page to tell our readers how our character might be feeling. Okay, is she doing a good job of this? I'm just going to read a couple more pages, and then we're going to have our little discussion about voice in both books. She helped the director set up the tables. She played ping pong and checkers. She sang songs. She wrote letters to friends in Hong Kong. All in
Chinese.
Chinese. Dear Yi Fong, she wrote in Chinese, how would you like me to visit you? She laughed as she finished the letter. Then she had to write the address in
Chinese.
In English. Why does she have to write it in English?
So the teacher can understand.
Because when it gets mailed, the letter gets mailed.
They gotta know what it says.
In our country, you can't write an address in another language and expect your letter to get somewhere, right? You have to write it in English. Silly post office in New York, she thought, why can't they read Chinese, right? Mei Mei had a dream. She thought about it at least once a day. Sometimes twice or 3 times. She told Bing about it in Chinese. All the gang, Bing and Mona and Shek and Leo and Ann, would go on a plane to Hong Kong. On the plane, everyone would speak Chinese. Instead, they went to Jones Beach. With the director, Mei Mei and her friends rode on 3 trains and 1 bus. They brought lunch, bathing suits, towels, and empty pails. The trip took 2 hours, and they talked and they joked the whole way in Chinese. So this is telling you that Mei Mei has a little bit of a struggle. On the one hand, she's in a place where they speak where they mostly speak English. But she has this group of people who she can speak her Chinese with, her home language. But she's feeling like she wishes that everyone would just speak her home language, right? Because in New York City, there's a place called Chinatown. And it's where all the people who come from China to come settle in our country, they go to New York City and they live in their little village in New York City. But once they leave Chinatown, then they're in New York City where there's not a whole bunch of Chinese people, and then they have to act like they're like Americans who speak English, right? So this is very interestingly written by an author named Ellen Levine. So, getting back to voice, how does Ellen Levine use her voice to excite our audience and to get them interested in this story? How does our author here, Saxton Freeman, how does he use voice in his book, How Are You Peeling, to excite the audience? With personality, purpose, and text features, okay? So, I want you to turn and talk now to your person who you turned and talked with before. This side of the room is going to talk about how are you peeling, all right? I already told you guys this. This side of the room is going to talk about personality, purpose, and text features, okay? This side of the room is going to talk about I hate English. Talk about the voice the author is using in I hate English. Turn and talk to your partner. Jesse Bellies, who were you talking to before? Okay. Were you two talking?